Hi there, Christian Henson from Spitfire Audio. Thanks ever so much for joining me today to have a look at BBC SO Core. The question a lot of you have been asking is, there's this new Discover version, which is $49 or free if you can't afford it. Then there's Core, which is kind of mid-level. And then there's Pro, which is quite expensive and is a very, very big download. Which is the best version for you? Well, what I want to show you today is the difference between them, but also why Core may be your best option, especially when you consider that being an owner of Discover, even if you got it for free, that'll give you a significant discount when you buy into either Core or Pro. But it makes Core particularly scintillating for what you get for the price. Let's start with Discover. $49, free if you can't afford it. Remember, we pay the musicians royalties though, so if you feel you can afford it, a substantial portion of that income will be passed along to the musicians. But this is what I've done with Discover, a plugin that only takes up 200 megabytes on your hard drive. For 200 megabytes, I hope you'll agree that that's pretty mind-blowing. And that's not me writing to the samples, that's me taking, well, murdering a piece of music written by Camille Saint-Saëns, the Danse Macabre. And the most important thing that I want to kick off with is whatever version of BBC SO you go for, remember that they're all intercompatible, backwards and forwards. In fact, what I'm going to do is take this Danse Macabre carve up and mode switch it into Core so you yourself can hear the difference. Okay, before I do that though, I'm going to attempt to describe the different versions, Discover, Core and Pro, by the use of video resolution. So this for me is Discover. You can see me, bald man, sitting in a studio. Perfectly acceptable, certainly within the realms of an image that has a lot of other stuff in it. It's just a small component. However, if you just blow this image up to full size, you can actually start seeing that it is of a lower resolution. We wouldn't recommend, certainly in its exposed form, Discover as a broadcast quality orchestral solution. It's great as part of a palette of sounds, and it's a great way of getting to know the orchestra. Now this is Core, a much better, finer resolution, and absolutely fine for broadcast. So what's the difference between Core and Pro? Well, this is Pro. You'll see that the resolution is the same, but there's just a little bit more information in the frame. Core, Pro. Core looks like this, and this is what you get. Whereas with Pro, you have different perspectives, and you can really desaturate, resaturate, and mess around with the signal. I'll stop exhausting this metaphor. Basically, if I was not the founder of Spitfire Audio, Core would probably be the option for me. If any of you are familiar with our Albion 1 library, it's basically everything you need to write cinematic music in a single box. I would say that is what Core is. It's kind of our Albion, but for a symphony orchestra. Everything you need under one hood. What we've noticed with people who use Spitfire is that people tend to come in from two different routes. People who've had piano lessons and have learnt to read music and have maybe gone to music college, which I applaud you for. And then there's people like me who are good with computers, who are interested in production and programming and that kind of stuff. So for me, I like to make music that has stuff from all different sources. Core, for me, would be my hub of symphonic orchestral that I would put all sorts of other stuff on top of, whereas Pro is for the slightly more refined orchestral composer. Right, so Here's my Discover arrangement. What I'm going to do is just hone it down to that single trailer. These are all the different kind of cut downs that they got me to do. And then what I'm actually going to do is download one of these free templates that we've created for the different versions. Now, where you go is the page, Spitfire Audio, thepage.com. And if you go down to resources, you'll see there's templates. So let's go core templates. And I'm working in Logic, but as you can see, there's Pro Tools, Ableton, Cubase, and there will be more. Download. What I'm going to open is the simple stereo mix of the multiple instances of Core. Templates are a really handy way of basically getting your hands straight on the goods without having to organize stuff. We've also done all sorts of lovely routing and stuff, which gets progressively more complicated depending on which template you load. So before we dive into the arrangement, I just want to take you through the very kind of visible differences between Discover, Core, and Pro. Now, they're all proper symphonic sections, so it's not ensembles like strings, brass, woods, it's the actual section. So here I've got the first violins in Discover mode. Now just note the number of articulations or playing styles. You've got longs, spiccato, pizzicato, tremolo. Now let's move up to Core. You'll notice exactly the same. So what's the difference? Well, if we actually load in directly within Core, you'll see a huge difference in the number of articulations. Not only your longs, but your legatos. I'll get to those in a minute. Not only your short spiccatos, but your slightly longer and more dramatic staccatos. And as we move through the pages, the articulations, the styles, the playing techniques get more progressive. So let's go from this up to Pro. And remember, you can go in any direction. So you can start in Pro and go to Discover, from Discover to Core and back again. So we're going to go from Core to Pro. And you'll notice there isn't any more articulations. But what you will notice is the appearance of this mixing desk. And if we have a look in there, there's all of these mic perspectives and different ways you can focus on different parts of the orchestra. It's a simply huge array of mics. The default mix is Jake Jackson's mix number 1, which is a beautiful mix. And provided you use this in Pro, there will simply be no difference between the music you make in Pro and in Core, provided you use the same instruments. And that's the only other difference with Pro, is the outer limits of the kind of orchestral range are represented in Pro in the shape of, say, bass flutes and contrabass trombones, and indeed the orchestral leaders, the principal players of the strings. So let's go back to Core, and you'll see no mixer, just mix 1. So this is the stuff I want to import. I want to import the tempo track and possibly not the sync plop all the way. So we've got our various different stacks there, and that'll be the first thing that I do, is whack those in the different stacks. Right, just a little bit more organized now. So then what I'm going to do is open up one instance of Discover, move it to Core, and then switch all instances to Core. Okay, immediate obvious difference is there's a lot less reverb. I didn't pull that in with Discover. I want to rely on the room more to give you a more realistic sound, and you'll hear that some things are definitely much more upfront than they were in the Discover demo. The biggest jump that you'll get sonically between the three versions will be between Discover and either Core or Pro. That is because the way that we have created a library, a plugin that only has 200 megabytes, is to do all sorts of shenanigans with the samples. You don't get any round robins, any dynamic layers in Discover. We've just instead used our engineering prowess to give you a sense of that, whereas Core and Pro are much deeper sampled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move through the arrangements, just changing up the different articulations for the deeper set, namely legatos. Now, say for example, on a cello note like this, we have these longs. So you go. great for parts that contain more than one note on top of each other at the time, great for kind of paddy parts. But if you want to create a lead line, you probably hear there's a little what we call suck between the note, little gaps. If I switch it to legato, what will cleverly happen, if I join the notes up, so overlap them ever so slightly, it'll put the player's legato transition, so the bit between the notes, it'll insert them between each note that you play to give a much more realistic articulation. And if I play it very softly, it'll switch the type of legato transition to a portamento or glissandi. There's all of these slight nuances. So what I'm going to do is move through the arrangement, picking out these different nuanced opportunities that I can take. I'm just wondering if we can maybe do something a little bit cheeky with some trills. So just little ornaments there. Nice little ornaments there. It's great, loving it. Now, this was something that I put in on Discover so it would really articulate that. I don't think it needs it now because of this legato. Maybe just on that first bit. Right, let's load up trumpets, legato. Absolutely incredible sounding room. Another legato to tenor trombones. So you get the tenor trombones and the bass trombones in core, but not the contrabass trombones. Therein lies one of the differences of the libraries, the kind of outer edges you get in pro, not in core, your kind of core hub of orchestral. Let's load that up. Legato loads in as default. Incredible sound. This is where you really hear the key difference of Discover and Core on these short notes. Not only are there more dynamic layers, which really, really very noticeable with a trombone because they have this chocolatey quiet tone. Then once you really start blowing them, they really rasp. Got our nice big tubas. Insane. Beautiful harp. Got just different variants of the percussion, much more choices of different hits you have. Again, if you go in here, you'll see that there's more options. And finally through to the strings. Bass legato. Insane. There's something about that room. It's not dissimilar in sound to Air Studios in the fact that it's got walls that are kind of quite close to the player, so you get this instant reflection that duplicates the sound and makes it sound really bassy. But it doesn't have the height of the ceiling, so it's quite a controlled sound, doesn't have a massive reverb tail. You hear spiccato, much shorter than staccato. Staccato is, I think, more dramatic. Spiccatos are kind of more effective for For the average ear, it's just a little 1% here and there, but you multiply that across a symphony orchestra, and that deep sampling is really going to bring the differences out. Oh, it bites. Oh, col legno. Even in the basses, huge number of like short harmonics. Artok pizzicato, where they actually snap the note. Insane. Scary tremolos, all of that kind of stuff. So the palette of colours to play with Core is of a different order of magnitude compared to Discover. And let's have a listen to where we're currently at. Okay, we're not far off. It is an incredible kind of 3D sound you get. With Discover, it's this great kind of flattened, dramatic sound. With this, it feels like you're in the room. Quite extraordinary. It really does bite. That's what I'm going to do. We're going to use the solo bassoon there, and I think I may do the same with the clarinets here. Let's just have a little listen to the existing MIDI to see if that sounds good. Awesome, absolutely awesome. A little bit too much reverb. Let's keep it real, and then let's just try the clarinets. This is one of the advantages of pulling stuff into these templates. You can just literally drag into the specific articulations. You'll see just legato there. Now, I wonder, loving these trill things, I wonder if we should come in with the solo. And this is, again, what you don't get in Discover are the solo woodwind instruments. Chop these two up. And move these down into flute. That's the solo flute legato. So legatos, trills there. Great. Now, let's have just a bit of fun at the end here. As we mentioned earlier, we've got these Bartok snaps. So let's have just a little, see if we can just alternate. Oh, feisty. Just very top. Let's just see if we can put some atmospherics in there. I'm going to use some of our favourite flautandos. Give us a bit of splosh for that, please. So I'm really happy with that. I think it's brash, it's kind of in your face whilst feeling very immersive. I enjoy the atmospheric beginning with that slight degree of nuance. I hope I've demonstrated to you that Discovery really is the kind of binary on and off. You're using your flutes, you're using your trumpets, your horns. Core lets you in to a world of nuance, the colours of the orchestra, every section, individual players versus groups of players, etc., etc. For me, what I love about it is it provides a very neat core unit that you can base all of your other production activities about. But naturally, if you want to feature the orchestra front and central and really get into even more nuanced orchestration and how you microphone the orchestra, how you light it, what different perspectives you use, then naturally the pro option is one for pros, sat at desks, rigs like this. Whilst Discover is something I will use on my laptop just on the road with me, sitting on my desktop. Core is something I can take with me if I'm working on a professional project without having to have loads of hard drives. And what I will be doing with Core versus Pro is I will do most of my arrangements in Core, say on the road or in the house. I'll bring them back here, and when the director's happy with it, I'll start activating all of those mics and really work on the nuanced sonic perspectives of these amazing set of recordings. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the video description down below. We do read these, and if we feel you'll need another film out of us, we'll happily oblige. I'm not camera shy. Thanks as always for watching, and for more information about both Core, Pro and Discover, hit the links down below. If you're not subscribed yet, do subscribe. Lots of amazing stuff coming up, and ding that bell to be notified the next time we put a video up. But also do check out the page, again linked below, for masses of resources, stories about the individual players, different demos created by users, and do just let us know how you're getting along with stuff and if there's anything else we can help you with further down the line. One of those for the fantastic performers, players and musicians in the BBC Symphony Orchestra. See you soon.